Hi guys, I'm Sam.
Hi, and I'm Evan.
This is Horror Appraisal, and we're going to bring to you a nice little film that we love, along with a lot of the other horror fans.
That's right. Clive Barker's Hellraiser.
We're out here enjoying the fire because we need to cool off after kind of, well, you need to come out and have some comfort, really, with the fire. We just watched Hellraiser again, and it's a scary movie.
It is, man. It's one of the most terrifying movies from childhood, just with its imagery and overall ambiance and special effects at the time.
When we met some of the cast of this movie, the point that they brought up to us was, how old were you when you first saw this movie? Nicholas Vince, in particular, the chatterer in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
He was adamant in asking people, how old were you when you first saw this?
I guess when I saw the original Hellraiser, I'd already seen a lot of horror films as a child. I was probably 8 or 9 when I saw Hellraiser for the first time. I remember
Super young.
Yeah, I remember. It had only been out for a couple years at the time, or maybe 3. I saw it very early 90s.
I was 12, and my mom had gone to bed.
Yeah.
And it was one of those many times when Hellraiser 1 and 2 together were on USA.
Yeah.
So it was edited, but it was still scary as hell.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, absolutely. The movie really, it's kind of a complex movie. It really encompasses a lot of themes that are kind of older themes, such as man toying with powers he can't really understand.
Craving more constantly, never being satisfied.
But the character of Frank, who we see with the box at the beginning, he's
insatiable in his desires.
He's an insatiable guy. Nothing is ever enough for him. There's no human experience. There's no pain, no pleasure. It's never enough.
He says that after he has sex with Julia, too.
Yeah.
It's never enough.
Yeah.
And, of course, she's like, it better be because I'm addicted to you now.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is abusive to her and dominant, and she craves somebody to be dominant with her.
Yeah.
Her husband, Larry.
Yeah.
Andrew Robinson, by the way.
Played by Andrew Robinson.
One of those actors that you love.
Garrick for you Deep Space Nine fans.
Which, by the way, his best role was definitely in Dirty Harry. He was the bad guy. I never really realized that was him because he was such a good actor in Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And then, later in life, it's like Pumpkinhead 2.
Yeah.
Cobra.
Hey, man. But anyway, he's a great guy.
But Julia was craving to be dominated and never knew it until Frank comes knocking. I think that she was kind of maybe satisfied with the way her life was.
Julia was someone who I think was probably always craving something new, but not really knowing what it would be. So one day, this guy shows up to her door.
Yeah, her husband's brother, or her husband-to-be's brother.
Yeah, her soon-to-be brother-in-law. And she's just she's overcome with desire for him and him for her. And they just become entangled together. He absolutely is able to manipulate and control her from that point on. And the thing about her, what makes her a really kind of scary character, is she is ferocious in what she will go through to bring him back from the abyss.
It's kind of sad, really, because he turns her into something that she shouldn't be.
Yeah. To him, she's nothing but a tool.
She gets him back with skin, pretty much. That's it.
Yeah.
That he doesn't deserve. I'm shivering. It's cold.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay. But anyway.
You'll pick up.
All right.
One of the things you notice right away about Hellraiser is the music from Christopher Young.
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Christopher Young gives us this score for this film that really just kind of makes us feel beauty and terror all at once. You use the word for it. It's very alluring.
Enticing.
Enticing. It brings you into it.
It creates a lot of curiosity.
It does. It's a very sweeping score, very grand and scale. You just know that some stuff is going to happen. When you hear the score, it's not necessarily going to be great for the people involved either.
Right. You hear I think on the score it's called the waltz of some kind of waltz. Like when Frank is being resurrected, you hear this waltz. It's like some kind of fucked up, demented ballroom thing that you would hear in the ballroom in hell. Like,
I agree.
I mean, you're dancing with death essentially.
It's very dance macabre in that way.
Very grand.
Very sweeping. Yeah.
It's a massive thing. When you think about Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is Christopher Young's, like, preceded this film.
Yeah.
And then he had The Fly 2, which The Fly 2 is pretty much identical to Hellraiser.
Yeah. Christopher Young, Christopher Young does a great job, but it's kind of like Danny Elfman. If you've heard a Christopher Young score, you're like, oh, this sounds like Christopher Young. It's because it does.
Well, John Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, you make something and it's a formula for success, and you just keep going. And you're like, this worked. This was good. I'm going to reuse it. Of course, The Fly 2 was right after Hellraiser, so you can't really. How are you gonna follow up Hellraiser with with that kind of music? But the metal clanging sounds in Hellraiser, you've got a lot of things like chains and torture implements, and the sounds of hell, I think, is what Christopher Young brought us. You've got these deep metallic clangs that are kind of signaling that something is knocking on the real world, kind of signaling that it's arrived.
Sure.
And especially when you're working the box and you've got the clang. It's like a signal.
Yeah.
The sentinels of hell are coming to claim their prize.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
Talking about that, really bringing in, the characters of the Cenobites, these scions of hell, these custodians of, perhaps not necessarily souls of the damned, but just people who are journeying through the outer experience of human.
In some ways, they're repo men.
Okay.
Like you need to pay a debt. The box is there to offer you pleasure.
Flesh for flesh.
And the Cenobites, yes, they're there to offer you what you've unfortunately asked for, but also in the same right, they're there to claim what's theirs.
Yeah.
I mean,
you belong to them.
You're not going to get away with it at that point.
They will reward you with, tears beyond imagining or majesty beyond imagining, but at the same time, it's always going to come down to you're going to have to pay what you owe. And that's really what I think that's kind of what makes the character of Pinhead just so frightening in horror. He's
calm about it all.
I'd say he's very, this is the way it is. We have a job to do. He's very, like an automaton almost.
Something like that Frank said. Some things have to be endured.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that sums Pinhead up. He is the inevitable.
I like that.
He is absolutely the inevitable. You cannot get away with it.
And, it's kind of maybe a lesson, too.
Don't fuck with shit.
Well, exactly. I mean, if be happy with what you can experience and take pleasures in life where you can.
The simple smoking of a cigarette that Frank experienced. He enjoyed that. That brought him pleasure.
He did.
After being deprived of his taste for so long, he was like, I can taste that. It's been so long since I've tasted anything. That simple act of taste was something he should have been appreciating all along.
Right, because
it's really how we should all be. I don't know necessarily that Clive Barker was getting at that. I think Clive Barker was just kind of, how Clive is. He's kind of like, I'm going to make a really sick, twisted torture movie.
Yeah.
But the effects guy. Who would you say? Who was the effects guy that you said?
Bob King.
Bob King.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
Yeah, the effects for the film at the time.
When Frank comes back.
Yeah, I mean the birthing scene. It really shows us, how painful birth can be. Even though it's by this entity that's not being birthed by a mother of sorts, it's all carnal. It's all flesh producing flesh, which is, kind of the blood coming from the hand. which gets on the remains of Frank, and then that's enough. That enough is enough to pull Frank back into the physical realm. But of course, he's not a complete man.
Well, see, it pulls me back to the second birth that they call in the Christian world is when you are baptized. Is that the second birth?
Well, it's when you're reborn.
Yeah, they call that your second birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting that you have that, but the birth coming back from hell is much more gruesome.
Yeah.
And you've got that comparison there. Maybe not again what Clive Barker was thinking about while he was doing this, but I think it's still like really, if you really think about it, it's pretty scary when you think about the possibilities of the afterlife. They're, I mean, if you're not a good person, they're scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think Hellraiser is one of the scariest films of all time?
I mean, I do. Like I said, I was talking about earlier, the imagery of Hellraiser, the idea of it. People may not think it's up to today's standards, but I say those people lack imagination.
The house.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you've got this normal house in a neighborhood, and this room has the gate to hell in it, and Frank is resurrected, and he's this white, pale, blood-drained, blob.
Yeah.
Pretty much, with some bones. And he comes back, and he's just sitting there in the room waiting for Julia. And he needs her help, absolutely, but he is so dominant. He was so dominant in his real life that even though he is this helpless, weak blob, he demands fear. And he demands, control.
Yeah.
In all situations, whether he's strong or not.
And really, it's kind of a, talk about control and submissiveness, in the world beyond our understanding where resides the Cenobites, there are extremes such as pain and pleasure, but if they mingle and you can't tell one from the other at some point, are there really extremes? Because it's kind of like the famous line that Pinhead uses, please no tears, it's a waste of good suffering.
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
I mean, we don't equate good.
It talks about how serious a business he is.
We don't equate good with suffering. It's just an extreme.
Right.
So there's not really a whole lot of difference between them. I think it's quite interesting.
Right. Other than Pinhead, what is your favorite Cenobite?
My favorite Cenobite
For
other than
noise or
Pinhead.
what?
I mean, it's probably an obvious one. It's got to be the Chatterer.
We met the Chatterer.
We did.
Nicholas Vince.
Nicholas Vince.
He was an ultimately pleasurable guy, too. He was super nice. He came from Britain, right?
Yeah, he's British.
And he described to us how Hellraiser is, for them, a Christmas tradition.
Yeah.
It's viewed publicly on TV during Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And it's played over there. That's kind of fucked up.
That is kind of fucked up.
But the thing is, the UK celebrated the fact that, and he told us this is from Nicholas Vince, the UK celebrated the fact that it was their first real entrance into the horror market that America dominated.
Yeah, and what an entrance it was.
It was the horror movie. I mean, can you imagine the scariest thing you could see before that? Probably was Nightmare on Elm Street. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
The Exorcist, pretty scary. Yeah, really scary. I mean, how you gonna forget that?
Mm-hmm.
You go into the theater, you've got the cover, the artwork, and you've got Pinhead on it, and he's holding a box. And you're like, okay, that guy's kind of scary, but it doesn't prepare you for really what you're in for. I think if you are in 1987 and you're going to a theater to see this movie called Hellraiser, I don't think it prepares you for that in any way. But I would like to go back in time and experience that, erase all the movies I've seen.
Yeah.
Go back
And experience it for the first time.
It'd be so scary.
Now, of course,
I'd cry like a baby.
the film was based on Clive Barker's novella of the title "The Hellbound Heart." So if you guys are horror fans, I really think you should check it out. There are definitely some differences between the book and the film, but it's a great read, especially if you like the works of Clive Barker.
Real quick, before we close up, I want to mention Ashley Lawrence and Doug Bradley, because they were both really awesome to me. Doug Bradley was really a confident guy. He wasn't arrogant, but you could tell that he
he knew he had a loyal. He knows he has a very loyal following.
He does.
As the performer of Pinhead, and of course, he's very outspoken about people who try to remake the film, or also
rebooted.
Yeah, or basically being that titular role. Is it gonna go? Are you just gonna blow ash everywhere? Now we have embers.
Fire's almost gone.
Oh well.
There he goes.
Yep.
A little bit left. But speaking of him, though, he was awesome because he would sign any line from his movies.
He was very. He
wanted to please his fans.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. He wanted to please his fans, basically.
Ashley Lawrence.
Yeah.
That chick goes the extra mile to please her fans.
She does.
Was in the line to meet her, and first of all, she has aged very well. I'm not trying to be.
She's beautiful.
She's a very gorgeous woman. She looks better now. Healthier, I think, is the better word. She looks healthier now than she did in Hellraiser movies.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think she would probably admit it too. Like, she just seems like she's lived a good life. But when I brought my German one sheet to her, I asked her to sign "Go to Hell" on it, and she said, "You know what? Why don't I look up in German how to spell "Go to Hell"?" And a lot of people sign in signatures. They'll talk to you, but when it comes down to it, they don't want to take a whole lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of them will, but she did this, and she grabbed my phone and she looked up in German how to spell "Go to Hell," and she did it. And then she also, in translation, wrote "Go to Hell" in quotes.
Yeah.
So that was really cool of her.
It was very, very fond memories of like actually meeting people from that film that we liked and we enjoyed.
She had a problem with eyes, right? She was denying people photos all day because she had like an eye burn, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, she had like a flash burn from like something.
But she took one with us, yeah.
Yeah, she went out in the hall. She said, "You promise you're not going to do any flash, right?" And I was like in the bathroom or something because I missed that picture.
I know, but
there's something rattling over here.
Yeah.
I think it's a bug. God. Anyway, closing remarks. Do you have anything closing remarks?
Yeah, closing remarks. I think the film's just a very great tribute to the idea of, man is only capable of experiencing so much within a certain plane of existence. And whenever we try to steal fire from the gods, as it were, we're inevitably going to get burned. And I just think the film is just a great, it's almost kind of like a Greek tragedy.
It's a fairy tale.
Yeah, basically, yeah,
it's a grim fairy tale.
Very grim fairy tale.
It's a legend that if you don't have enough, figure out
how to make it enough.
How to simplify your life in a way that makes it to where the simple things are enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because if you seek too much, hell will come for you. And I think that's so frightening.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been an appraisal of Hellraiser.
All right. I'm Evan.
Have a great night. I'm Sam. And we'll see you later.
Good night.
It's cold.
It's so fucking cold. I shook through the whole damn thing.
I want to do that again with like a good fire.
Yeah, let's see how this turned out. Because if I can move, I won't be cold. Oh, shit. Oh, okay.